Good morning, all our viewers. I welcome all of you to this 31st practical training module class. And we have invited Sri CA Dheeraj Khandelwal, Central Council member, who is serving third term in the Central Council from Mumbai. My Vice Chairman, Sridhar Mopala, is with me. And we have invited two faculties. One is CA Anil Kumar Mittal and CA Raksa Agarwal. Both are from Siliguri and expert of this topic. They basically know each and every nuances of this MSME and the startup. And these two catchy words in the country working like this. Not only these words are catchy, but these are contributing to our country a lot. Startups helping us to grow in new dimensions, new areas, and the things which is not done in the past. And this MSME, which looks medium and small, but it is not medium and small. They are contributing to our country, 1/3 of the GDP of our country. So these, in the terms of the contribution, they are big. In numbers, they are big. And they are, we chartered accountants, basically, who is serving in the remote places, small places or small city and towns, regularly handling this type of clients. So with this thought, we have organized this program. I am requesting Sridhar Mopala to invite Dheeraj and say a few words before that.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. A very good morning to all the viewers and our guest for today, none other than Dheeraj Khandelwal, a man, we call it as MSME in our council. And our speakers for the day today, Raksha and Anil Kumar Mittal, and the Board of Studies team who have been relentlessly working, and my dear students. A very warm welcome to the 31st live webinar, the PTM. Today's topic is so interesting, and we can say that the synchronization that happened, so MSME and startup, anytime in ICAI, these two words come up, the first name we recollect is our Dheeraj Bhai, who has been working so long on these two things. Student, let me share, as a part of 75 years of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, MSME committee headed by the chairman, Mr. Dheeraj Khandelwal, they've organized a bus yatra for 75 days covering all the cities of across the India. This clearly shows that ICAI is a part of nation building. I can comfortably say that any multinational today, whatever we are seeing, one day was a startup. One day it started as a MSME only. So therefore, Indian growth depends upon how well we organize these MSMEs, how well we give a comfort to startup. And even when it comes to our profession as a chartered accountant, this is the area where they need our assistance, they need our service, where chartered accountants can comfortably play as a global managers for them, guide them in case if these two industries sustain and be a part of economic growth, that's the biggest contribution to the nation, what we can do. And Dhirubhai, let me share, as a part of initiative of practical training module, proud to say that Ranjit Bhai was actually fighting on this and was proposed in the council, and entire council has accepted to conduct these live webinars on every Sunday. Today is the 31st week, continuous 31st week without any break. In this, I should really appreciate the team of SSCB who have been working on every Sunday to give the maximum exposure to the students. And today is the 31st week. And in all these weeks, there was a wide coverage on income tax, on GST, on audit tools, all technical aspects. So therefore, even student participation on a week-on-week, it is being increasing. On an average analysis, when we do for the last 30 sessions, 10,000 plus students from across the country have been attending this live webinar. And in our DLH platform recorded, another 1,000 students are seen. My dear student, I won't take much time because we call it as an MSME man. We call him as a senior and a person who want to see ICAI on the global platform, who really fight strong for the industry in the council. So I request my colleague and my friend, Mr. Dheeraj Khandelwal, to kindly share his words of wisdom to all our students. Dhirubhai, thank you very much for being a part of today's session.
Thank you, Sridhar, for very highly word about me and I think ICAI. And respected my good friend Sushil Goyal, chairman of the SSAB, and Vice Chairman Sridhar Mopala ji, the faculty Anil Mittalji and as well as Raksha Agrawal. I'm very happy to see that it's the 31st week. It's without any break. It's this SSCBV organizing this particular program for the benefit of the students. And I'm very, very happy to see that, such kind of non-technical, topic, which is more practical, more usable in the student life, is being organized. Otherwise, generally we practical subject, taxes and another, GST and all technical accounting standards being organized. This is a particular session, which is a more going to use for the students in the public, in the life, even the startup, which is a very catchy word as of now. Every students look forward, wanted to be joined as a startup or wanted to start their startup, but need to understand how the ICAI is helping them, what ICAI is doing it, and what student can do it. So I start with the MSME. MSME is a micro, small, medium enterprises, and chartered accountant. Being a chartered accountant, what is the MSME? What we play a role for the MSME? I think I can say it's a ICI as a chartered accountant. We play important role into the economy, and MSME also playing the very important role to the economy. The worldwide benchmark for the MSME in the contribution to the GDP is about 60%. In India, the MSME is contributing to GDP is about 30%. So here about there's a gap, 30 to in between 60 to 30%. It's a gap of 30%, and that's why our Prime Minister as well as this government is more focusing on the MSME. We need to for any nation growth, we need to have a growth of the MSME. And when we talk about a 10 crore MSME industries are there in the country, and if we just see the 10 crore MSME, it's about 94% are about very micro level people are there, very small people are there, micro people are there, and near about 4% are about is very small people are there. Hardly is 1% is a medium. So the growth is going to be lies another next 10 to 20 years is about micro to small to medium and medium to industries. And all these things can be played by the commerce graduate people or all professionals. And we as a professional, as a chartered accountant, can play an important role for beginning the lives of the MSME by guiding them in various roles. So MSMEs better start with the planning, with the educations from the various government subsidies, government planning policies, and we guide them properly. They can uplift them, and as well as a chartered accountant, we play important role in the consultancy advisory services. As of now, the industries, we can see in the industries we have the chartered accountant as a CFO. But it's small industries, we don't find the chartered accountant. They can't afford us. And when we can say as a practicing chartered accountant can provide them a complete package from starting from the planning and executions. Generally, as of now, what from last 60, 70 years, what we doing it, we are mostly occupying ourselves into the compliances requirement, whether it's a income tax return or GST return or different returns. And now some of the parts, some of the bucket of the people of the providing the such kind of, if we provide even the people are residing the small places, villages where the actual micro units are there, and if we help them in the macro units to the convert them to the smaller to the medium, and then is the real nation building to there. And once they grow, our profession definitely going to grow, and that's the only purpose. We need to serve them properly, and they will be benefited. All professionals definitely going to benefit. That's the MSME. If we talk about what the services are there in MSME, I can say it's about a lot of PLI schemes are there where we provide consultancy services about the PLI, and we talk about the payment deferred payment gateway, where in the MSME the government has provided a lot of benefits, and that's there's a two requirement for the MSME. One is low rate of interest, and that's the government is providing low rate of interest. If we register ourselves as a Uddam registration, then the MSME unit can get it at a lower rate of interest. And second thing is about if we my payment for the MSME it got stuck in the corporate and in where. So there's a actual requirement. If your payment is not received within 45 days, you can file an appeal. And as of now, in the country, there are two methods. One is the insolvency. But insolvency is the 1 crore rupees outstanding has to be there. And second is the 138 cases or civil courts. For the civil court, it used to take 10 years. Or for 138 cases, take me 4 to 5 years. But here, the government is providing for the MSME payment protection. If your payment is not returned within 45 days, you can file appeal. I think within a year, within a 6 months or 8 months, by filing a appeal, you get the payment. That's the advantage for the protection for the MSME for the payment, because most of the MSME got stuck to the payments. They're the working capital, and that's the protection which government provided. And another part is of course the various government schemes. And government scheme, if we properly guide them where need to project to be implemented, where various schemes are there, they're definitely going to benefit it. And for that, ICAI started last year this committee. And in this committee, we brought a lot of programs, awareness programs, books on the subsidy, and various. We also started portals. And in the MSME.ICAI portals, you can find a comparative subsidy scheme. If person need to find out where the food processing industry is to be implemented. So suppose if we are thinking about the MP, I'm not aware of the various other state. We can have a comparison, and we can know about where the India, which is the providing, which state is providing best of facility on the schemes as well as the subsidy. That's the portal, and I've seen that number of lot of social media side as well as in the Google side. The reference came to the you can find it. This is from the ICAI portal only, MSME.ICAI portal. So that's the MSME. And if you wanted to know more things, you can log on to the MSME.ICAI.org. You will get all the information about the MSME schemes, various progress, and how it can be benefited. So this is about the MSME. I can say for the students, wherever you're going to be there, you can provide all services, all related planning, execution, all services to the MSME. And it's a great scope. If you're going to come in the practice, this is a tremendous scope in anywhere of the world. Even down, those are the accounting technician, now we calling the different name in the new board of studies. So the person also, they can provide such kind of services to the national building program. Coming to the startup, I think startup again is a very catchy name, and people think about people are thinking about to have their own startup. But startup is the two principle. MSME definitely is a business, but for the startup is something different. The business which is scalable with the technology. That's the two criteria: scalable and with the technology. And if you are having ideas, for the model of the scalable model across the globe or India, or with the use of the new technology, that's called within the purview of the startup. And the government has given number of benefits again for the startup. You can register your startup, the DPIIT, and you can get the benefit of the income tax benefit, and a lot of other benefits are there. There are a lot of incubation centers provided by the government. Various state governments providing various kind of facilities and subsidies and grants. A lot of state government, every state government 40 to 50 lakh rupees for the idea generation. A lot of things are providing. Here is need to understand that now previously we was looking only the role by this of the startup by the all IITs, IIMs, all other professionals. In 2018, we had one program in the for the startup program when I was interacting with the Suresh Prabhuji. Then that time there was 30,000 odd startup was registered. We were talking about, sir, how many chartered accountant got registered in the startup? He said, I don't know the figure. Maybe very less, maybe about 50, 60 people are maybe there. Then immediately said, what is the success ratio of this, the startup which is been there in the register? He said maybe 33 to 4%. Then immediately I said, I at least know 50, 60 chartered accountant startup where I can say it's a success rate, so it's about 100%. Hardly as chartered accountant led startup been failed. He said, he also referred, I know the 2 or 3 people, they are very successful. So point is that, when the chartered accountant led startup is going to establish, because they have the commercial, financial and all sort of working knowledge and capabilities, they can run the startup very well organized way. Here need to understand that, for technology, as today chartered accountant being groomed up in the technology, they know about the IITs, the our social by providing all IITs, batches and other things. So people are equipped with the technology. Or otherwise hiring the technology people into this place. So if you being as a chartered accountant or students with your colleague, those who in the IT field, you can definitely well set up your startup and think about a scalable model, which is in and out is there in your areas. So a startup is now been there previously in 2018. There were 30 odd startup was registered. Now it's about more than 80,000 startup being registered. I can say that the chartered accountant can play, or student or professional people can play a very important role into this area. And as of now, I've seen I'm interacting a lot of students as a professional chartered accountant students who is into particular running into as a student, but by also started their own area in the commerce, in e-commerce or in technology field. That's a very important area, and a lot of venture capital fund or private equity fund are coming up for the student also. So previously, it's only for the graduate or chartered accountant. Now I can say it's not only restricted to the these people. It's now movement has reached to the student level itself. So when we organized 2018 program, I was surprised to see that more than 150 chartered accountant led startup being participated, and I can say it's not only just a fintech. It's not just only fintech. It's people from the pharmaceutical, people from the logistics side, people from the agriculture side, people from the restaurant side, all commerce, e-commerce side, all sort of the chartered accountant led startup being participated. And I can say I know that more than 400, 500, chartered accountant who started their own startup and being successfully running. And we, as ICAI, started the incubation center. And I can say in the incubation center itself, 2018-19 itself, we given this space to the 2 people, and both the 2 startups are funded by the various venture funds. So that's the point I wanted to convey, that there's huge scope, and ICAI started their own portal is a startup.ici.org, wherein as of now it's only for members. Definitely we wanted to include all the student also. Those are completed their articleship can also be participated in the particular such kind of idea generation as well as funding program. So this is the digital. You can say it's a complete digital marketplace for the startup, wherein you can find your co-founder, you can find your you can find your investor, angel investors, as well as we started a course for the our members, wherein the chartered accountant can learn about in the practice area. We can serve this particular area as a practices, because a lot of startup needed services, and whether it's a presentation skill, whether it's a valuation skill, whether it's a funding skills, or all sort of kind of working practice knowledge is going to be served by the chartered accountant. So this is also an area where the chartered accountant can start their own practice. So these are the areas. To sum up, I can say it's a very welcome note, in the ICAI leadership, where our council has given me a power, or they pose me confidence, to have this particular run this committee. I can say this is a good movement where now the chartered accountants leading into this area. Now, as of now, from last 2-3 years, the arena of the startup is domained by the, I think, IITs, IIMs, but I can say next 5 or 10 years will be the years for the chartered accountant, and this area going to lead by the chartered accountant. As of now, we can see the only two stream. One is the practice or job. I can say now going to be third stream is the chartered accountant in the startup. And I wanted to see more about chartered accountant or students into particular this area, so that they can build our country into the top nation and contribute directly to the GDP. With this, I welcome all the students to this particular area. And if you have any kind of query, you can post me up in the this portal also, or board of studies also, SSCB also, where I can reply all these things. With this, thank you very much. Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you, Sushil, for inviting me over here to have present my views into MSME and startup. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dheeraj. Dheeraj bhai, in fact, it's such an elaborated discussion. Even we were also enjoying as a student. In fact, we got more information about MSME and startup and what ICAI is doing. My dear student, let me share. And Dhirubhai, yesterday and day before, we have conducted an international student conference at Hyderabad. It went on such really well, and students were so motivated. We realized what is the importance of seminar. My dear student, let me share. Probably in the entire seminar of 2 days, 16 hours, there will be one such half an hour where you get some important message for your life, which can change your perception, which can create and build for your career. So I request every student, because in this December month, especially in the coming 2 weeks, we have so many national conferences lined up at Agra, at Bhopal, at Indore, at Mumbai, everywhere. My request is, please kindly participate, because now we need to move forward and learn what exactly is going on in the world. Where are we standing? What else we need to equip? It is a time for the students to learn, both from theoretical, practical modules like webinar, and also the life skills from these seminars. So therefore, ICAI is always with you, and the entire council is with you in giving you the maximum support. Thank you, Dhirubhai, for really taking out your time, taking out all the information of MSME, what exactly a chartered accountant can contribute, how it can evolve as a third scheme. And I know that current generation CA students are ready enough to become an entrepreneur, startup, and converting into an MNC. Probably future, we are going to see not only Motilal Oswal or Aditya Birla. We'll be seeing so many entrepreneurs coming up in the coming day. And I'm sure the current day speakers will share their expertise and knowledge, and students will be immensely benefited. So I request the BOS team, Gagandeep, to kindly introduce the speakers for today, and let's take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving the opportunity for introducing the today's session speakers. Today among us, CA Raksha Agarwal ji and CA Anil Kumar Mittal ji, our today's session speakers. CA Anil Kumar Mittal ji is a chartered accountant by qualification. He is in practice since 13 years and is a senior partner in Messer Agarwal Mittal and Company, a chartered accountancy firm located in Siliguri. He is specialized in project financing, subsidy and incentive scheme of both central and state government for MSME, and has been instrumental in setting up 64 factories till date for micro and small entrepreneurs. He has been playing very important role in helping MSME in getting financial assistance from various banks. He also specializes in indirect taxation, has expert knowledge of Goods and Service Tax Act 2017. He has been conducting regular seminar lectures on various topics related to MSME, project financing, GST in various forums, and also contribute articles on the same in various journals. Welcome, sir. CA Raksha Agarwal ji is a founder of Raksha Agarwal and Associate from Siliguri, West Bengal. She is a global startup advisor, founder of Think Tank, leadership member and associate member at MB's Global Tax Litigation Advisor, legal and compliance expert at Business Charcha, strategic advisor at MSME Business Forum India. She is an expertise in handling multiple tax cases. She is also impaneled with Startup India centers. She is also an active member of various startup forums and mentor to more than 200 plus startups. She has expertise in areas like virtual CFO services, startup funding and advisory, global tax restructuring, investment banking, income tax matters, etc. She has spoken in multiple forums and wrote numerous articles on taxation, finance, and startup area. She has received Global Women Inspiration Award. Welcome, ma'am. Over to sir. Now I request CA Anil Kumar Mittal ji to start.
Thank you, Gagandip ji. Respected CA Sushil Goyal ji, Chairman SSB Board of Studies. Respected CA Sridhar Mupala ji, Vice Chairman SSB Board of Studies. Respected DPIIT Kumar Khandelwal ji, Chairman Committee on MSME and Startup. And my dear students, a very good morning and welcome you all on this beautiful Sunday morning. Topic assigned to me is MSMEs. C. Dheeraj ji has wonderfully given the synopsis of MSMEs. What are actually MSMEs mean? What is the benefit available to the MSMEs? And most importantly, what we as a chartered accountant play an important role in the upliftment of the MSMEs. MSME is a very buzzword these days. We hear a lot about MSMEs in and around every time. And Hobby Kuna, they are playing such an important role. They contribute to 95% of total industrial units in India. 95% of total industrial units belong to either MSME. That means only the 5% belong to the other category, that is large or heavy industries. This MSME enterprise contributes to total to 45% of the total India's industrial employment. 50% of total India's exports are done by this MSME enterprise. Contribution to the GDP of the MSME is approximately 30%. As the MSME are among the strongest drivers of economic development, innovations, and employment, it becomes imperative to strengthen their ecosystem. MSMEs are the lifeline of any country's economy. Every country wants their MSME to flourish. And to flourish, all the governments, be it at the central level or the state level, has been very actively motivating or introducing various schemes, incentives to make the MSME grow at a larger scale. So before I start, I'll share my PPT with you. Is the PPT visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's visible. Please go ahead.
Today in my deliberation, basically, I will be discussing on what are MSMEs, what actually MSMEs means. What is the criteria of classification of MSMEs? How to take the MSME registration and what are the benefits available to them? We'll be discussing all this in length, one by one. Firstly, coming to MSMEs. We say MSMEs, but क्या मतलब होता है MSMEs का? It is basically an abbreviated word which stands for micro, small, and medium enterprises. And the most important word here it is enterprises. First, we need to understand what this enterprises means. Enterprises means an industrial undertaking or a business concern or any other establishment engaged in the manufacturing or production of goods or engaged in providing of services or rendering of services. We can say any concern which is engaged in any business activities. We chartered accountant provide services. We are also an enterprise. An enterprise manufacturing this pencil, unit manufacturing this pencil is an enterprise. A unit manufacturing trains is an enterprise. But every enterprise now again is classified into three categories. That is, one is micro, small, medium, and medium enterprises. And to be classified under any of the category, any enterprise has to take the registration under the MSME Act 2016. Once the MSME is registered, it gets a certificate called Udyam Registration Certificate. Only once you get your Udyam Registration Certificate, you will be classified as an MSME. So to be classified MSME and to enjoy all the benefits of the MSME, you have to first register yourself as a Udyam Register. And to register, there's a site called udyamregistration.gov.in. It's a very simple site, very easily anyone can get registered. Only the basic requirement is you need to have an Aadhaar card. Visit the site, have an Aadhaar card, put in your number, Aadhaar number. You'll get the OTP on your phone, which is should be registered on your Aadhaar card. Most importantly, Aadhaar card should have a phone number registered on it. An Aadhaar card can be, if it is a proprietorship firm, Aadhaar card has to be of a proprietor. If your concern is a partnership firm, any of the partner Aadhaar card can be used. If it's a private limited company, any of the directors' Aadhaar card can be used. No other documents are basically required to be uploaded. Only the information are self-explanatory. Some of the basic information are required to put in about your name of the industries, what type of industry you are coming up with, or what is the service sector you belong into, what is the location of your plant, or what is the location of your information. Within 10 to 15 minutes, we can fill up all the informations, and within 10 minutes, you get your Udyam number. And within 24 hours, you get the Udyam registration certificate. Very simple procedure, and this is a basic requirement every MSME enterprise should follow. They should get their registration done in the Udyam registration.gov.in and get the Udyam registration certificate. Only once you have this certificate, you will be able to enjoy all the benefits available to MSME. Wherever you go for a funding scheme, or wherever you go for a subsidy scheme, or any other benefits which you want to take, every department asks for the registration certificate, that is MSME certificate, or in other words, we call this Udyam registration certificate. Now, once you get your Udyam registration certificate, enterprise is classified under 3 categories basically: micro, small, and medium enterprise. And this classification depends upon what are the investment in your plant and machinery or equipment, or what is your turnover. Both the criteria has to be seen to be classifiable under any of the criteria. This new criteria was introduced from 1st of July 2020. Pre-1st July 2020, there was a different criteria specified for the manufacturing industry and the service industries. Now the classification criteria for the service industry or a manufacturing industry has been provided the same criteria, wherein if your investment in plant and machinery or equipment is not more than 1 crore, and your annual turnover is not more than 5 crores, you will be classified under micro enterprise. Investment in plant and machinery, if you are setting a factory, it is investment in plant and machinery. If you are running an office like chartered accountant, investment in equipment has to be seen equipments like computers, printers, and other devices, scanners, and whatever the modern equipments which you put in for your running your offices. If the investment in plant and machinery is not more than 1 crore and your annual turnover does not process 5 crore, you will be classified under micro category. To be classified under a small category, investment in plant and machinery or the equipment should not be more than 10 crores and your annual turnover should not be more than 50 crores. That means investment in plant and machinery up to 10 crores and annual turnover up to 50 crores. If an enterprise has, it will be classified under small category. And for the medium category, investment in plant and machinery equipment is up to 50 crores and turnover is up to 250 crores. Investment in plant and machinery and annual turnover, both the criteria has to be satisfied to be classified under either of the category. To give example, suppose an enterprise is having an investment in plant and machinery is 80 lakh rupees and its annual turnover process 5 crores, let's say its annual turnover is 6 crores. Will that be classified under micro category? As investment in plant and machinery is only 80 lakh rupees, but its turnover has processed 5 crore. So both the criteria here, it is not getting satisfied. Turnover is more than 5 crore. That's why it will come to the other category and shift itself to a small category. Why? Investment in plant machinery is up to 10 crore, that is 80 lakh rupees. 80 lakh rupees comes within the limit of 10 crores. And turnover is 6 crore, that is again coming within the limit of 50 crores. So this will be classified as small category. Both the criteria has to be satisfied to be classified either as a micro, small, or medium. This is very important to understand because various subsidies schemes available into different states depends upon which category of MSME which you belong. If you're a micro industry or a micro enterprise, you get more of subsidy schemes, more of incentive scheme, higher of benefits. The benefit reduces where you go get a rise and a small category. Again, the benefit is lesser to the medium enterprise in comparison to micro and small enterprises. So this classification is very important to understand. That is Udyam registration certificate which you receive after you register yourself at udyamregistration.gov.in. Now, we discuss here two terms basically. Now, before coming to that, earlier under MSME, only the manufacturing units or the factories or the service industry was included in the definition of MSME. Trading units were not included. Trading units were not classified as MSME. But there was demand of the industries. Or wherever, for a practically also, even you go to a banker for funding of any trading units, they ask for the MSME certificate. Yeah, MSME certificate is here. Whereas we used to say that trader has not allowed to register as MSME or they are not permitted to register themselves as a MSME unit. Government took a note of this and they allowed even the retail trade or the wholesale trade, but for the limited purposes only, not for the all the purposes. They were also allowed to get the self-registered as MSME and have their registration certificate, that is Udyam registration certificate. Now, manufacturing unit, service unit, as well as the trading units can give themselves registered as a MSME registration. While classification, we heard the two terms, basically the plant and machinery and the turnover. Now we need to understand what does the plant and machinery means, or which figure does the Udyam registration or Udyam Aadhaar, when we go for registration at Udyam Aadhaar, Udyam.gov, what figure they captures. For plant and machinery, it says, it has the definition for plant and machinery derived from the Income Tax Act only. Whatever the definition of plant and machinery given in the income tax, that will be considered here also for the plant and machinery. And what will the value of the plant and machinery? They adopt the value as written down value on the last date of the financial year. So we written down value as on the date of the last financial year, that value is adopted and value is determined what will be the value of the plant and machinery, not the cost value. आपने क्या price, purchase price था आपका machinery का, that is not relevant. What is the written down value or what is the WDV value as on the date of the last financial year will be taken for the valuation purpose of the plant and machinery. You might have purchased machinery in 1 crore rupees. You haven't taken the registration. You are registered after 2 years. The depreciated value gets around 80 lakh rupees. The value of your plant and machinery will be considered as 80 lakh rupees. Likewise, for the turnover. Turnover is again captured by your income tax IT returns or the GST returns which we filed under the GST Act. Whatever the person who is having a new registration, who have currently started a business only and do not have any prior profit real statement or balance sheet, or they have not filed any of their returns. So for them, self-declaration, on the basis of the self-declaration about their investment in plant machinery or the turnover, the figure will be captured in the Udyam registration. Here they are not, at this moment, they are not capturing this figure. It is blank. Whenever you file your financial statement, this automatically gets updated in your registration. The turnover, here it means the turnover which was reflected by you in your income tax return or a GST returns. While calculating the turnover, exports, whatever the exports which you do is not included in the turnover. Exports, turnover less exports is the turnover which is considered for the classification criteria. Plant and machinery, WDV, as per Income Tax Act, turnover less, total turnover less, export turnover will become the turnover for the classification. So we decided what under which classification will be, whether it will be a micro, small, or medium enterprise. Now, we have understood what is micro, small, and medium enterprise, or what do you mean by MSME? Why we do government wants their MSME units to flourish, and to make them flourish, government has provided a lot of benefits to the MSME. One such benefit is GEM. We have heard a lot about Flipkart, Amazon, Snapdeal, Nykaa. Likewise, the government has also made a e-marketplace for all MSME enterprises. Here, an MSME can register themselves in this government marketplace, register their products. And the government has done a wonderful initiative. Government used all the procurements of government earlier used to happen by an open tender. And many of the small, medium enterprises could not participate because they were not aware of those things also. And it was very cumbersome process. Now the government has made compulsorily for all the TSUs, all the government departments, central departments, public sector undertaking, that at least 25% of their procurement has to be done through GEM portal. That is government e-marketplaces. 25% procurement now the government is doing through a GEM portal. And also another benefit which is given in this portal, that you get a 15% weighted average price benefit for the MSME. We see that large scale industry can give a competitive rate, whether the small or micro, small or medium enterprises, they might not be able to compete with the large industry in a comparison to the cost factor or the rate factor. So for their benefit, government has said we can allow up to 15% higher cost than the rate with the large scale or the heavy industries are offering in the market. It's a very wonderful site. We should suggest all our MSME enterprises, all the enterprises, to get themselves under in this portal, register their product, and take the benefit of this wonderful site. And people are getting a lot of wonderful orders on this site. Very easy to register in the site, very easy to market your product, and you get a ready-made market at a very minimum cost. In fact, no cost at all. The biggest problem which are faced by the MSME are delayed payments. We can sell large amount of goods. We can provide a lot of services, but what about the payments? Payments are stuck up. We do not get timely payments. And to protect this, government has said any payment which is being made beyond 45 days will be eligible to get interest 3 times the rate notified by the RBI. That means MSME are protected by saying that the payment has to be made within 45 days. If the payment is not made within 45 days, an enterprise can charge interest which may be 3 times the rate notified by the RBI. Suppose if the bank rate is currently 8 to 9%, or may say 10%, we can charge up to 30% rate of interest on our outstanding bills. Wonderful protection given to the MSME. Now, how do you enable this protection? A wonderful site named Samadhan Portal has been launched by the government, wherein a MSME or any enterprise whose payments are stuck up can upload their complaint in this site. Complaint will be registered, and the Samadhan Portal will automatically send this notification or the notice that a complaint has been received to a buyer who has not the payment. A complaint has been received. You are not making the payments. Whether you make the payment timely or the action will be taken. Generally 95% of the cases उसी समय settle हो जाता है जैसे ही complaint raise होती है, and the buyer makes payment to the supplier. Even if the payment is not made, the case is booked against the buyer, and if found to be actually defaulter, interest will be charged to him, and the interest which is earned will be transferred to the supplier. Wonderful portal, very simple portal where you can upload your invoices, where you can upload your terms and conditions, where you can upload your complaint stating that the payment has not received timely, all the terms of the agreements has been violated. Government will come to protect you and will also make sure that you get the interest 3 times the rate notified by the government. Wonderful portal, wonderful scheme. Every MSME enterprises should take the benefit of this. Once you get the timely payment, your working capital problem is solved to an extent. Now, another scheme, that is trade receivable discounting system, or also called as trades. Why to wait for the payment to receive in 15 days or 30 days? We can immediately get the payments. That is the beauty of the system, called trade receivable discounting system, or trades. We have heard about the discounting in our accountancy. Practically, you can apply your accounting, the knowledge of it. Whenever we make the supply to a large industry, we raise an invoice. And maybe terms of our invoice, or maybe terms of the invoice, maybe payment to be made in 15 days or 30 days as decided between the buyer and the seller. Or when we make a supply to the government, when payments are made, late payments, 30 days, 45, terms of the payments are very late over there. Why to wait for such long time? You can register under this trade scheme. And there are 3 available platforms called www.rxil.in, www.mexchange.com, and invoicemart.com, where MSME can get registered themselves. Your payment was supposed to be received in 30 days now, but you want in your immediate payment. Register on any of this site. What seller will do? Seller will upload their invoices. Buyer, the person whom the seller has made the supplies, will accept, yes, we have received these goods or services, and the invoice uploaded by the seller is correct. And now in between the buyer and the seller, a financer comes in. The 3 platforms, maybe any of the financiers, which will bid for invoices. Say, you are supposed to receive 1 crore rupees after 1 month. Financiers will bid, he will be paying you 98 lakh rupees. Once it is accepted between the buyer and the seller gets payment within 45 hours in their bank accounts. And the financier will get its payment from the seller once the terms of the conditions are expired. Suppose the seller was supposed to make a payment to the buyer within, suppose the buyer was supposed to make this payment to the buyer with 13 days, the financier will take the payment from the buyer when the 30 days expires. Seller को अपना पैसा मिल जाता है, and he is also again his working capital can be managed very properly. वो पैसा से he can be further used in the business expansion. Very wonderful scheme. Payment received within 48 hours. So we should also advise our clients. We should also see the MSMEs whose payments are being instructed, there are delay in payments. We can ask them to get themselves registered under this platform and take the benefit of this trade discounting schemes. Another benefit which is available to MSME is marketing promotion scheme. There are many small, medium enterprises located in the remote places. They cannot market their products. Though their products are very good, they cannot market their products properly. They cannot visit the foreign countries to market their products. They cannot visit the exhibitions organized in Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata. Only the large players do get the benefit of attending those events because it involves a cost is involved in it. Also, the procedure involved in it is cumbersome. Government has given this benefit to MSME that you all people also participate in these exhibitions, whether in abroad or whether in India. We will subsidize it. We will reimburse the expenses incurred by you. Government wants this MSME, micro, small and medium enterprise to come up from there blockage and expand to the whole world. Financial assistance will be provided ranging from 25% to 95% of the airfare. And also the space rent which they are supposed to give for participating in the examination. Most of the expenses are being reimbursed as per the terms of the fund. So you get an airfare reimbursement, you get the reimbursement of the exhibition fees which you pay. Again, a wonderful scheme for the MSME. We know some of the benefits which are there available in the income tax for the small, micro and small enterprise. Which says up to 5, if your income is up to 5 lakh rupees, then there is no tax on it. Also, audit is not required, wherein your turnover is up to 2 crore and you disclose profit at the rate of 8% or 6%, which you all know as per section 44A. And another new development, you don't have to do your audit, wherein your turnover is up to 10 crore, but the condition is 95% of your total receipts or payments should be repaid through bank accounts. So micro and small medium enterprises having a turnover up to 8 crore, they are freed of either going into the audit compliances. There are other benefits also available to MSME. You get concessions on electricity bills. Get yourself registered, have a Udyam registration certificate, give it to a electricity department. From the next bill onwards, you will see there is a reduction in your electricity bills. 1 rupee, say 1.5 rupee per unit, you get reduction in your electricity. But most of us people do not know about this benefit. Most of the MSME enterprise, though they registered, have been given this certificate to the West Bengal Electricity Board or any of the electricity board of the respective states. We should ask our MSME to give their MSME registration certificate to the electricity board and get the benefit of reduction in electricity bills. There are other benefits available: subsidy on patent registration or ISO certification. Any product which you wish to register, you choose to patent or get yourself ISO registered, you get a subsidy on this. The most important benefit which every MSME wants, the funds. Every micro, small or medium enterprise are short of funds. And they have been neglected by the banks in funding their small projects because they are not proper with their papers. They are not proper with their business policies. They are not proper in conversation with the banks. तो उनको बैंक में जाने से दिक्कत होती थी, बैंक को भी रिलेक्टेड होता था उनको लोन देने. But government has understood this problem and specifically launched various funding schemes for the MSME. We'll be discussing some of the funding schemes which are available specifically to the MSME enterprises, starting from the smaller loan to the higher loans as per the requirement of the MSME. Must have heard about the loan, Mudra loan. Government has distributed a lot of funds under this scheme. Loan amount ranges from 50,000 to 10 lakh, depending upon your requirement. इसमें एक छोटा से छोटा दुकानदार, छोटा से छोटा enterprise can avail loan. Suppose a small, if you want a bike, a Zomato, as a person who is employed in a Zomato and he does the delivery of the goods, but he doesn't have a bike of his own, he can avail the loan under the price. It is in individual capacity. It doesn't require to be MSME registered. For an enterprise who is a micro or small, can also get the benefit of this Mudra scheme. Up to 10 lakh rupees, you are eligible to get this scheme. You can buy your equipments, maybe tractors, trucks, or whatever the equipments which you require for your running your businesses. It's also very easy to get this loan. You can apply this loan through online portal also, mudra.gov.in. You can visit the site and apply the loan online. Once you apply the loan online, your certificate, your application goes to the banker. You must select also the banker which you prefer. You may select your own banker or the banker which is nearby your places. After the application is submitted, you can take the printout of the application and visit the bank with the requisite documents and bank do fund under this scheme, and they have done a lot of funding under this scheme. Wonderful scheme. Everyone should take the benefit of this scheme if you are requirement of actual funds. 50,000 to 10,000. Also, an interest benefit is also over here. Whereas normal scheme, normal interest on other loans may range up to 10%. Here you get a reduction of 1% to 1.5% benefit, lower rate of interest than the normal rate of interest. Mudra scheme. Here the limit is up to 10 lakh rupees. But what about you want a loan more than the 10 lakh rupees? Another scheme, that is PMEGP scheme, or the Prime Minister Employment Generation Program. You are a student right now, but one day you become a chartered accountant. You want to set up your own office, but you do not have the fund to set up your office. You require the fund to set up your office. And to fund this type of people, this scheme is launched. You want to set up your small factory, but you do not have the fund. You have an idea that you'll set up a factory, but you do not have fund. This scheme is for those people. Prime Minister Employment Generation Program. It is the only scheme which is credit-linked subsidy scheme. Here you get the loan also, and also as well as the subsidy also. आपको इसमें loan भी मिलेगा, subsidy भी मिलेगा. Who is eligible? Any individual above 18 years of age can get the benefit of this scheme. What should be the cost of your project? For manufacturing units, the total cost of the project should be 50 lakhs. 50 लाख से ऊपर project cost होगा तो ये scheme में you can take the benefit of this scheme. Suppose if you are a business or service sector units, your project cost would be 20 lakh rupees. Chartered accountant can apply up to. A chartered accountant can, for the chartered accountant, the cost should be, project cost should be maximum up to 20 lakh rupees. How much loan we get? 90% of the project cost. If you are in the general category, you get 90% of the project cost. Suppose your project cost is 50 lakh rupees, you can get the loan of up to 45 lakh rupees. मतलब सिर्फ अपना 10% margin money has to be invested by an enterprise or an individual. 90% of the fund will be provided by the bank itself. You get a loan up to 90%. Also, you get a subsidy on this loan. Subsidy may range from 15% to 35%. आपको suppose 45 लाख का लोन मिला, you get a subsidy of 20%. मतलब 9 लाख रुपया आपको वापस मिलेगा from the government. And you can use this subsidy amount for repaying your loans for a certain, after a certain period of time. There is a time to be followed when you'll be getting the subsidy and when this loan will be repaid. Only scheme, wonderful scheme wherein we are getting a loan as well as subsidy from the government. Loan at a very subsidized interest rate and a subsidy of 15% to 35%. 15 to 35%, how to determine? If you are a general category person and you are setting up industry in urban areas, then you get a subsidy of 15%. But whereas you set up this industry in rural areas, you get subsidy up to 25%. If you are a special category person, that means SC, ST or minority person, then you get subsidy up to 25% if you are setting up industry in urban areas, and 35% if you are setting up industry in rural areas, or if you are setting a service sector industry or service sector enterprise in a rural areas. Huge amount of subsidy, especially for the person who is under a special category and setup is done in the rural areas. Government wants the people of the rural area also come up. They also come up with ideas. They come with the new industries. They come with the new service sectors. And to fund those people, this wonderful scheme is being launched. Up to 50 lakh. But again, you want a second loan on top of apne business kiya. Your business is running very good. You are doing wonders. The products are being marketed wonderfully. There is huge demand in the market. Now you want further expansion of this. your business. You will require more funds. You can apply for the second one. Second loan up to this 1 crore. Well, further 50 crores you can apply under this scheme. You can get further 50 lakh benefit under this scheme. That only, but after a certain period of time when you have established your business. This loan can also be applied online. The website name of this kvconline.gov.in or PMGB portal. You can apply this scheme, or you can directly visit the bankers also, or any MSME office in your area, MSME office or DIC office. You can understand the scheme, take the benefit of this scheme for yourself also and for the other person related to you. And as a chartered accountant student, you should be also knowing all this scheme so that you can benefit your clients, the prospective clients, which will be with you when you become a chartered accountant. Before explaining it to your clients, you should understand these schemes. You should understand what are the schemes available, what are the various benefits available. Then only you can pass on these benefits to your prospective clients or the person closer to you, the person nearer to you, the person who requires all these benefits, but they are not aware of these things. The government is doing a lot of things for the MSMEs. They have launched wonderful schemes, be at a center level or state level. We should understand all their schemes. State also has been giving number of schemes. We should study about those schemes and pass on this benefit to the person who actually requires it. So we discussed Mudra loan, that was up to 10 lakh rupees. We discussed about the Prime Minister Employment Generation Program, wherein the funding up to can be done up to project cost 50 lakh rupees, and for the second project up to 1 crore rupees. But what if you require a more loan? Or what if you require a loan of more than 1 crore rupees? Another scheme called Udan scheme, or popularly known as CGP MSME scheme, where you can avail loan up to 200 lakh rupees, that is up to 2 crore rupees, and that too without any collaterals. Koi collateral security nahi deni. If you are availing loan up to 200 lakh rupees, no any collateral security is required. Generally we go to the bank, they are ready to fund, but they also want to be secure कि हमारा जो पैसा इन enterprise को देंगे या किसी को भी देंगे should come back properly. And to secure themselves, they ask for the security from the borrowers. Here, we'll fund you, but what if the loan is not repaid? We want the security from your side. They basically ask for the collateral securities. Other than the primary security, they also ask for the collateral security. You know what is called primary security and collateral security? Primary security, they basically which are funded by the bank itself, maybe plant and machinery, maybe shade, maybe stock. Other than this, they also ask for an additional security. Other than plant machinery, stock, they want another security. And this security is generally in the form of land, building, any immovable property, to make themselves secured if in any case the borrower is not unable to make the payments. But many of the enterprise may not be having this collateral security. We are in need of funding. So how will we be having a property to be mortgaged? For those people, this Udan scheme has been launched. This is a very old scheme, not a new scheme. Earlier, under this scheme, only up to 1 crore loan was available. But government has increased the loan limit from 1 crore rupees to 2 crore rupees. Collateral-free loan, no collateral security is required. You can approach to the bank with your idea and ask for the benefit of Udan scheme or CGT MSME scheme, which is called. Now, you get a loan, and for this loan, you are not giving any security. How the bank would be secured against their funding which have been made by the enterprise? It is the guarantee is being given by the central government to the bankers. In case the borrower fails to make the payment, who will make you the payment? Government is giving guarantee. Here the bankers are more secure now because it is easy to get the money from the government rather than getting it from the borrower, default borrower, for which government is also charging 1% to 2% as a commission fees or guarantee charges, which the government is giving to bankers. It depends. It may range from 1% to 2%, which government is charging from the borrower for giving guarantee on the behalf of the borrower to the banker. Interest rate is lower in comparison to normal funding scheme of the bankers. 10% है तो उसमें 1-2% इसमें भी कम ही रहेगा. But here the cost increases because of this guarantee charges, fees is required to be being paid by the borrower to the government. Another beauty of this scheme, you suppose if you require a loan of more than 200 lakh rupees, आपको बड़ा industry लगाना है. आपको requirement is suppose 5 crore rupees. But under this scheme, you are only able to get 2 crore rupees. Whatever the other 3 crore rupees. Government or the banker will ask for the collateral security again over. Now in this case, you may be having certain security. Of course, maybe you may be having a residential property or maybe having a land which you are not currently using it, and it can be used as a mortgage to banks. But the valuation of the bank or that residential property or the land comes to up to 3 crore rupees only, and you need a loan of 5 crore rupees. Here in this scheme, up to 200 lakh rupees or up to 200 crores, up to 2 crores, bank will take the guarantee from the government, and another 3 crore rupees, your property which is available to you, that is residential property or a landed property, any other immovable property, will be used as a collateral security. Suppose the valuation of that security comes to 1 crore only, then you will be eligible to loan up to 3 crore rupees. Are you going well, Gagandip ji?
Yes, sir, perfectly fine.
Sure. So this is again a wonderful Udan scheme. People are not actually aware of this. We should make these people aware. We should make people aware of this scheme and take the maximum benefit of this scheme. 2 crore rupees loan is a huge amount for a micro and small enterprises. If a person who is actually in need of funding and he is very sure of his product and he is very sure of his services, only he is lacking is because of the funding. Paisa nahi hai, dhanda kaise karenge? This is the scheme available. Government wants people to take this benefit. Bankers are ready to give, only depending upon their other norms, KYC norms and things which they do internally to see that the fund is being used for the purpose for which they are being given. To understand this scheme, read this scheme in detail and pass on the benefit to the people who actually require this scheme. Another scheme specifically for the lady entrepreneur or entrepreneur belonging to SC/ST. Government wants lady entrepreneur to come forward. They want ladies to come up with their ideas. They want to make them entrepreneurs. Government wants people from the SC caste or the ST tribe to come forward. They also to come onto the mainstream industry stream. They also are supposed to set up an enterprise. And for those people, wonderful scheme name, Standup India. As the name suggests, it's a beautiful name. Standup India. You can ever loan up to 1 crore rupees. Loan amount up to 1 crore rupees can be available under this Standup India scheme. Margin money means what? The money which a entrepreneur has to bring from its own source is only 15%. Whereas in other scheme, margin money may go up to 25% or 25 to 30%. Whereas under this scheme, only margin money is 25%, 15% only. And the most important, it's so easy to get a loan because every branch has been instructed to do at least one loan in a year. Do at least one Stand-up India loan in a year. Every branch. And see, so many branches are available in and around your places. And I'm sure every branch must be requiring this type of borrower so that they may finish up their quota. Wonderful scheme for the lady entrepreneur, wonderful scheme for the SC/ST people. Stand-up India scheme. These are the basic funding scheme which we have discussed. Mudra loan up to 10 lakh rupees. PMJP, Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Scheme up to 50 lakh rupees. Further extended to 1 crore rupees. I've discussed about Prime Minister Employment. I've discussed about this CGT MSME scheme or the UDAN scheme where funding can be availed up to 2 crore rupees. You can also avail further funding in this provided you have some portion of the collateral security. Fourth scheme which discussed was about the Stand-up India scheme, specifically designed for the lady entrepreneur and the person belonging to the SC/ST tribe. We should all understand all this scheme and try to pass on this benefit to the person who actually requires. There are other funding schemes also, which we are not discussing right now. But to give a feel about there are schemes available. बोलते हैं कि है ही नहीं कुछ भी. There's nothing for the small and medium enterprises, but they are. We should be knowing about where are the schemes available, how they can be available. And we as a chartered accountant, the first person who can analyze all these schemes. We can understand the intricacies of this scheme and give the benefit to the person who actually requires it. Other than this funding scheme, also the various state government has various subsidy schemes. Every state government wants कि हमारे state में industries आए, हमारे state में नई factory लगे, हमारे state में नए उद्योग लगे. Why? Because if a factory comes into, it gives a lot of employment, a lot of tax revenue. Every state को चाहिए कि उसके state में बहुत सारी factory लगे, and every state by and far has launched subsidy schemes. Since I belong to the West Bengal, I'll be sharing a snapshot of this scheme. Bangladesh, here is very wonderful scheme named Bangladesh scheme is being launched. See the amount of subsidy for the incentive, which industry in West Bengal is getting. Subsidy on plant and machinery, it ranges from 15% to 72%, depending which category you belong to, micro, small or medium enterprise. And also depends in which area you set up. You set up in rural areas, backward areas, or other areas, municipal areas. So depending upon the size of your enterprise, whether micro, small or medium enterprise, depending upon where you set up your factory, rural area, backward areas, the more you set up your factories in the rural and the backward areas, the more higher the subsidy you get. You get subsidy on plant and machinery ranging from 15% to 72%. You get subsidy on term loan, interest subsidy on term loan, which may range again from 25% to 70%. Whatever the interest which you pay. I've discussed about the funding scheme, wherein you can avail the loan from the banks. And once you avail the loan, you have to pay the interest to them. The interest which you pay under this subsidy scheme, you get the subsidy. You pay the interest and you get the reimbursement of the interest paid by you from the state government, which may range up to 25% to 70%. Again, here you get power subsidy, which may range from 1 rupees kilowatt to 1.5 kilowatt. You get waiver of electricity duty, 50% to 100%. Subsidy for the GST. Because subsidy on stamp duty and registration fees. You purchase a land for setting up your factory. The registration and the stamp duty which you pay to the state government is reimbursed under this scheme. You get subsidy for patent registration. Subsidy for energy efficiency. If you put on some equipment where energy is being saved, you get the reimbursement of those expenses to certain expenses. You get subsidy for ISO registration, patent registration. This is such a snapshot of the benefits which I wanted to share with you to get you the feel what government is doing for the micro, small and medium enterprises. We should be knowing about this scheme's benefits. Then only we can pass on this benefit. If we can properly pass on to this benefit to the person, lot of industries, lot of service sectors in which will come. And if they come, they grow, we grow, country grows. So this is all about various things related to the MSME enterprises. Now, second session is lined up for the startup. Various schemes available for the startup, and the Raksha is very good speaker on this. We'll take the question answer after the Raksha has finished up with the delegation. Or anything else we would like to say?
Yes, sir, fine. So thank you very much for enlightening the students on a very important topic, MSME and startup. Now I request here Raksha Agarwal ji to please share the topic with the students. Over to Raksha, ma'am.
Thank you. Is my slide visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Gagandeep ji, for having me here. And thank you so much, Anil sir, for this wonderful session on MSME. So as we know that startup is a very common term in today's time. And with that thought process in mind, it is very important for we as chartered accountants or for you as CA students to know what is the importance of startup in today's world. What are the various terminologies, the various data that needs to be known when you are talking to any startup or when you are in the finance team for a startup? What are the things that you should be knowing? So let us briefly first see what we'll be covering today in this discussion. So first, we'll try to understand the overview of startup world. Next, we'll move on to the definition of startup. Then what is the registration process for same, the benefits of startup. And finally, we will be knowing that what is the future for CA as a startup. So let's move forward and understand firstly, what is the overview of startup world. So in this slide, we can see a number of figures. So the first figure that we can see is the number of startups in India. This itself speaks that how huge is the startup community in India. Yes, my dear students, 80,000 plus startups are there in India till now. So that is a very good amount. And we can see that why government is promoting so much of startups till now. And also for you as a CA student, you have a lot of future in the startup world, considering the growth with which the startup is moving. Next, we can see the investment with which the startups has brought into India from 2014 to 2019, which is $58 billion. So this is again one of the reasons why government is promoting startup, because we know that for any economy to run, it is always the funds. And if any sector is bringing funds for India, it is always important. So startup community has brought in $58 billion investment funding in the span of 5 years. So that is again a very huge thing. Next term we can see over here is unicorn startups in India. Now, we might have heard or we might not have heard about this term, which is known as unicorn. Now, what do we mean by unicorn? Well, before 2013, there was no such term which is known as a unicorn. It was just an animal. But now, in the term of startup, it holds a very vital information. Okay, so unicorn is actually any startup which has a valuation of more than $1 billion, right? So if any startup holds that kind of valuation, then that will be categorized as a unicorn. And in India, at present, 107 startups are there. So again, that is a very good amount. Next term that is very important in the startup community is incubators and accelerators. Now, what is this? So for any business to start, we need advices, we need guidance, right? And in the field of startups, it is the incubators and accelerators that play that role. So these are nothing but universities, institutions like IIT, IIM. So these kind of institutions are there, which are known as incubators and accelerators. They guide the startups. They mentor the startups in terms of various business plans, how they are to raise the investments, how they are to form their startups. So all those things are being done in the incubation center and acceleration center. And at present in India, there are 1020 plus startups, incubation centers and acceleration. Okay. Next, we can see that there is a startup portal. So if you want to register any startup or know information about any startup, there is a definite portal for it, which is the startupindia.gov.in. It is a very interactive website. I am requesting each of the students to have a visit at the website and see how the government is developing this kind of thing. Every now and then we have new initiatives, new plans coming up, and everything is reflected on this website. Okay. And the most important thing in this slide is at present, India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. Yes. So that is again a very huge thing. First is obviously USA at present, and second is China. After that comes India. So, and in no time, I'm sure India will be the first largest startup ecosystem in the world, because being a developing country and the pace with which India is growing, there's a lot of future ahead in the field of startup for India. So let us move ahead and see what is the timeline for Startup India. So basically, the Startup India has bought in the year 2016 under the flagship program of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So since then, up till now, there have been multiple changes in the definition of startup. As we know that nothing remains static. So if you are even learning income tax or if you are learning GST, it is very important for you to stay updated. Similar is the case of in the case of startup as well. So if you were reflecting the startup definition that was there in 2016, it is not relevant now because it has gone multiple changes. And now the latest definition which you should be seeing is the definition which has been there since 2019. So after that, no changes have been there. And the latest definition is 2019. We'll be covering that later in detail. So this is just to make you understand that how much the government is working, what are the changes that has been brought in, and how the Startup India timeline has been there since 2016. Okay. Now, let us understand what are the stages of journey in the startup. We know that any business goes through various cycles, right? First comes the ideation stage, then comes the scaling stage, then might be the growth stage. So every business has a different cycle, right? But in case of startup, it is totally different from the case of any normal business. How is it different? Let us understand. A startup journey is not similar to any normal business journey. Okay. So there are numerous stages in case of startup. If I have to classify it in broad phases, it is formation, validation, and growth. So under formation, there are three important factors, which is the first is ideation. Okay. Now let us understand this in detail. So what do we mean by ideation? Let's say a person is there, or you as a student are there who has certain idea. Okay. It might be from any source which was there previously, or it might be a very brand new idea. So the first step in any startup journey is first to get the idea. Because without the idea, no business can run, right? So in this, you need to have the ideation in place. You need to have the thought process that how you will be running your business. So that is the first step in any startup journey. First is the idea. Second, after you get the idea, you cannot simply launch that into the market, right? After that comes the concepting stage. Okay. Now, what is the concepting stage? In the concepting stage, three most important factors are there. So the first is your mission. The second is your vision, and the third is your strategy. So let's say a company is there. Let's say take the example of might be Reliance. Okay. Now Reliance might be have the idea of making a sustainable economy, right? So that is something. But to have that idea in place, they need to have a mission. Like you as a CA student, at present, what is your goal? At present, your goal is to become a CA, right? Similar is the case for a startup as well. If any startup does not have any mission, vision, or strategy, then they are bound to go nowhere. So they need to break down their idea into the mission, vision, and strategy. Only after they have these things in place, they can move forward and work towards this kind of strategy. Right. So let's say if I have a startup in the area of might be food development. Okay. So my mission can be that I want to eradicate poverty, or I want to eradicate hunger. That can be my mission. My vision can be like it can be broken down into 1 year, down the line or 5 years down the line, that after 5 years I want to achieve this thing in my business, and my strategy is how I am going to do that. Just speaking won't help. You need to have a proper strategy doing that. So that all things will have to be decided in the second stage, which is known as the concepting stage. Okay. After you have the concepting stage in mind, you have that pen down in paper. Next comes the committing stage. Okay. So what happens in the committing stage? In the committing stage, you need to have the right people in place. Okay. So it cannot be always that one person can run the show in case of startup. You need to have the correct co-founders. You need to have the correct associates. You need to have the correct employees, right? So all of these things come into place together, and then only after the commitment is there from them, they can move ahead in the startup journey. Now, how do we get the commitment? Like, we might have a co-founder who is very good and who match our thoughts with, but can there be any commitment just on the basis of verbal discussion? No. You need to have a proper agreement with respect to the same. So there might be a co-founders agreement, okay? So where you can specify that these are the roles and responsibilities for each of the co-founders. This is the kind of profit margin for each of the co-founders. This is how they will be withdrawing the salary. So every minute details need to be penned down. Now, why this is co-founders agreement is very important. You can say that might be two friends are there who have come together and decided to form a startup. You might have a very good bond, but it might so happen that in the upcoming days or upcoming years, when the startup goes to a good scale and you don't have any written strategy, written commitment from each of your founders, then what may happen, that things will start to fall apart. Okay, there will not be any trust relationships and all of those things. So it is very important from the beginning. Even if you are doing any startup with your friend, or even if your client is having a startup in which all the directors are the relatives, it is very much important in the case of startup to have a co-founders agreement from the day one. Okay, it will not only help you as a startup founder, but also if you want to have any investment, outside investment, the investors want to see that do you have any kind of breakdown of roles and responsibilities, breakdown of revenue between your co-founders. So this is very important, again, if you want to raise any outside investment as well. After you have the commitment, after you have the formation stage, now first stage is done, which is the formation stage. Okay. Next comes your validation. Now, what do we mean by validation? See, you might have a very good idea, or your client might have a very good idea, but it is very important that the users for which the idea is there, they should be accepting it. Okay. So you should form a minimum viable product. Now, this what minimum viable product is a very common terminology used in a startup community. But let us understand firstly what it is, minimum viable product. Let's say taking the case study of might be Instagram. So I'm sure students, you are using Instagram every now and then for a professional purpose as well as for personal purpose. So what is the strategy or what is the business plan of Instagram? Okay, it has initially started as just a photo sharing platform where you can just simply share your photo, and there was like and like option. Okay, so that was the initial strategy for Instagram. But later on, when it was accepted by the users and a lot more and more users started making accounts in Instagram, it spreaded into different revenue sources. So now we can see there are hashtags opportunities in Instagram. There are revenue perspective. You can sell your products. There are a marketplace. There are areas where you can post reels, and all of those features have later on come. So do you think it would have been successful for Instagram if it would have launched all the features at once in the starting? No. So what did Instagram here do? They launched a minimum viable product. So minimum viable product means a product in which the basic features are there. Okay. So basic feature for Instagram was just a photo sharing platform, which is very simple to make, right? So that was a minimum viable product. And when Instagram found that this minimum viable product was accepted by the users, it launched more and more features as a input. So every now and then we see a new feature has been added in Instagram. So they're not overboarding the platform with all the features at once, but they're using just one or two features at once as an introduction. So that is how a startup needs to grow. So in validation, you need to have a proper plan where it can be seen that your startup is accepted by the users and it is a minimum viable product. So you're not spending much of the cost, but you're just introducing minimum features for that product or service. Okay. So after you have the validation for your startup, now is the scaling and establishing stage. So in the scaling stage, what is to be done? In the scaling stage, obviously, once you have the idea validated, like take the example of Instagram again. It had the idea validated, it started scaling, right? How it started scaling? It started including more and more revenue features. It started scaling more and more growth features. It might be spread it to more and more countries. Initially it was not launched in few of the countries, but later on it was launched to worldwide, and that is how scaling was done. Okay. And in terms of product, if I am to say what is scaling, so let's say you have launched a product in your hometown. Okay. It is doing very good in that area, and now that you have the revenue there in that place, you start scaling it to other places, might be other countries as well. So that is what is covered in the scaling stage. Here you need to have various factors in place, like you need to analyze your business profit, your per unit growth, your per unit profit, all those things, features, important numbers need to be analyzed here, so that you can understand how you need to scale and where you need to scale. Okay. After all of these things have been put in place, the final stage is establishing. When is a startup known to be established? Okay. So a startup is basically known to be established when it has either achieved its mission or vision, or the startup founder has generated so much revenue that they now don't need to continue in the business. They can sell the business to their investors or to any outside party, and they can move on to a second startup as a new venture. Okay. So once this kind of things are in there, the startups can take their exit. They can sell their shares to the founders or to the investors or whatever suits them. And once they take the exit from the startup at a good valuation, they can start venturing another startup. So this is how the startup journey normally looks like. Okay. Now we have talked so much about idea, right? The first stage that we have seen is ideation. We need to have the idea. But you might be thinking that where does the idea come from, or where do we get the idea from? So students, let me say that there are numerous sources also where you can think, or in what manner you can think so as to get the idea from. Okay. So let us understand the first point, which is from hobbies and interest. Now, what do we mean by this? Let's say, let's take the example of Sachin Tendulkar. We know that he is there in cricket, right? His hobby and interest is in cricket. So if he were to form a startup, what would you think would he be successful more in? Would he be successful more in a startup which is of a accountancy, taxation background, or in a startup which is from the sports background? Definitely in the sports background, right? Because that too also in cricket. Why? Because Sachin Tendulkar knows what are the loops and loopholes in cricket, or what are the areas in cricket that needs more interest, right? For example, we know about this Dream 11. Dream 11 is again a startup, a unicorn startup that is there. So it is in the field of cricket. It is nothing but just speculation that is being taking place in an app which is in the form of a game, again for cricket. So if you have any kind of interest in any area, it might be taxation or it might be non-taxation. But if you know that area quite well, you can definitely come up with an idea which is very good in the field of startup. So first source is from your hobbies and interest. Okay. The next source is from needs. Now, this is a very common source for most of the startups. From needs, what do we mean by this? That let's take the example of Zomato. Now, what is Zomato doing? Zomato is basically a food delivery app, right? So what Zomato has seen that before there was no such culture of delivering food in home at just a span of time, right? There might be certain delivery systems of certain restaurants, but it was not so much valid or not so much scaled up that we can just order it from any restaurant. So Zomato identified that there is a gap, that there is a need in the market for this kind of software or this kind of application. Okay. So it had come up with this kind of solution where it will be providing food to the people at the comfort of their home. So the second source is that start identifying, start analyzing what are the loopholes in the market, what are the loopholes in the industry. So since you are from, obviously you all are CA students, you know accountancy very well, you know taxation very well, right? So start analyzing and start discussing it with your friends so that you can understand that what kind of needs is there in the field of taxation. So definitely, if you start brainstorming this kind of things with your friends and with your relatives, you might come up with a very good solution, a very good problem that was there, and you might come up with a good solution from that. So second option for the idea is definitely from needs. The third source is identification shortage. Now, what do we mean by identification shortage? It might be there that there is a solution already available in the market, but in that solution, there are certain loopholes or there are certain features which are not there. So you can identify that in this solution, this loophole is there. And with that loophole, you can again bring out a solution. So that can be a source for your idea. So in this, let's take the example of ShopClues. So ShopClues, as you might be aware, it was once a unicorn, but it has later on failed as a startup. Okay. Now, what was the feature of ShopClues? ShopClues was against an e-commerce platform. Okay, where it was delivering all kind of things, but only it was focusing more on India. So the delivery, the market, the supply, everything was focused more for India. So at that point of time, Amazon was also there, Flipkart was also there, but their major focus was global, and they were not focusing much on India because they did not know how much huge the market of India is. But when ShopClues was doing so well in India, they thought that why not come to India as well? And they had the cash, they had the money to obviously market and do the business in India. So what did Amazon and Flipkart started doing? They have used their marketing resources, they have used their marketing budget to such an extent that ShopClues could not compete with them. Right? ShopClues could not compete with them, and ultimately, due to lack of revenue, lack of marketing budget, ShopClues went out of the picture. And now that all we hear about is Amazon and Flipkart, we don't hear about ShopClues at all. So what did Amazon and Flipkart saw? They saw that there is a shortage in the Indian market which ShopClues is not able to cover, and they come up with the solution that they will be catering to this area, and that is what has made them what they are today in terms of Amazon and Flipkart. So the third source for your idea is identification shortage. The fourth is your trend analysis. Okay. So what is trend analysis? Simply speaking, what was 10 years back relevant is not relevant now. And what is relevant now may not be relevant 10 years after. Very true. For example, earlier in our CE syllabus, there was no much feed for carbon emissions, sustainability accounting, and all of these things. But considering the future, we can see that our institute has vividly added this kind of things in the syllabus. So you need to look in the broader perspective that if you want to go into practice or if you want to go into job, this is how the trend is working. So think for 10 years down the line, what will be relevant at that point of time, and start working for that from now, and then only you can be successful. So if I talk about in the terms of startup as well, you can see that there are numerous startups in sustainability, in carbon emission, which are doing very well, and the government is also promoting those kind of startups because government knows that 10 years down the line it will only be more of solar energy, more of carbon emission, more of carbon energy, more of blockchain and those kind of things, and that is why government has started promoting this kind of startups from now. So you as a CA student should also be focusing more on trend analysis and think that if you want to come up with any idea for a startup, start thinking what will be relevant 10 years from now, not what is relevant now. Okay. Next source can be import from existing success ideas. Now, what do we mean by this? Let's say you have brainstormed a lot, you have thought about it a lot, but still you are not able to come up with any kind of solution. So what is the option that is available to you? Let's say you have went on an educational tour to some other country, might be Ireland. Okay. After going there, you saw that there is certain kind of business that is doing very well there, and that kind of business model is not there in India. Okay, you like that business model, it is doing very well, and it is not there in India. So what you can do, you can use that idea and you can introduce something like that in India as well. So if I want to take the example of same, there is a accounting startup with the name of Book Tech. Okay, so they are one of my colleagues. So what are they doing? They are a pre-accounting software, not actually accounting software, but a pre-accounting software. So all the data collection that needs to be done, all the data collection from the client that needs to be done timely. That is a very cumbersome task, right? We need to either send our staff to their place or anything or they need to come to our place every now and then to get the data updated, right? But this pre-accounting software, what does it do? It is such a system that we don't need to interact with the client every now and then for getting the accounting data, getting the GST data. We can get it at our office, and the client can also see the data, what we are doing at their office place. So this is not actually a new idea, but this is import from existing success idea. So this kind of model is very much familiar in foreign. Okay, not in India, but in foreign, this kind of platform is very much familiar. They are working on this kind of thing. So the person who is the founder, he liked that kind of environment, and he has brought in that into India. So that is also one of the ideation source that you can take in. Next ideation source is customer study. Now, what is customer study? So let's say you might have or your client might have an existing business. Okay, let's say might be of garment, okay, or might be of shoes. So they have an age-old business of let's say 30 years, 40 years or so, but they want to come up with something new. So what you can advise them is start taking any feedback from the consumers, like the 5-question feedback or 6-question feedback or something like that, which you can design for your clients as well. Okay, this is also one of the things that you as a CA student can think about it. So when you have that feedback form ready, your client can show it to the customer who comes into their shop, and once they take the feedback of all the consumers, they will be able to understand that in their industry, this is what the customer wants. Okay, so the customer might be happy about something or might be unhappy about something, right? So you can analyze the unhappy situations and see if you can bring up a solution to make them happy, right? So this is also one of the idea source, how you can come up with a great startup idea. Okay, so now that we have understood the ideation stage, the overview of startup, let us understand the legal definition and the general definition for startup. Now, legally, if I am to say that what is a startup in terms of Standup India, there are 4 important points that needs to be understood. Okay, first is a startup has to be either a private limited company, a LLP, a partnership firm, or it can also be a one-person company. Okay, so a startup can either be only 4 forms: private limited, partnership, LLP, and one-person company. So if your client is there and that person is a sole proprietor, can it be categorized as a startup? No. So this 4 categories should be there. So that is the first criteria. The second criteria is the startup should not be more than 10 years old. Okay. Now, what do we mean by 10 years old? Let's say there's a company which has been incorporated in the year 2013. Okay. So from 2013, the 10 years end on might be 2023. So it is still ongoing. The time is still there of 2 months. So you can obviously register as a startup, but is it advisable to register a startup in the 9th year? No. Why no? Because if you will register a startup in the 9th year, what will happen? That you will not be able to take all the benefits of the startup. Just when you're about to take the benefits, you will not be categorized as a startup anymore. So although you can be called as a startup if you register now, but you need to see whether you will have the benefit of taking the startup registration at which point of time. Okay. So second criteria is your startup should not be more than 10 years old. The third criteria is a turnover criteria. So what the government says that your turnover should not be more than 100 CR in any of those 10 years. Okay. Now, why the government has put in this criteria? Because government wants to support small business. They want to support the startups which are very new. So government is believing that if your startup has crossed turnover of 100 CR, you are self-sufficient. Now you don't need the benefits for startup. Now you don't need the subsidies for startup. So now once you cross the turnover limit of 100 CR in any of the financial years, then you will be out from the category of startup. Okay. The fourth criteria is you need to be working towards innovation, development, some new idea that we have talked about. So if you're working in this category, you can be categorized as a startup. So this is the legal definition for a startup. Okay. But that is only valid in India. But startup is a word which is valid throughout the globe, right? So throughout the globe, a very common answer, if I am to say what is a startup, is a startup is any business which has the potential to disrupt the industry, disrupt the practice. Now, what do we mean by this? Again, continuing the example of, let's say, Zomato. So Zomato, before Zomato, what was there? If you had to order the food from a nearby restaurant also, you had to go there, you had to take the food and come back. Okay. But now the consumers have so much been addicted to this kind of food ordering practice that even if a restaurant is there nearby, just 2 feet away from their home, they will be ordering it from Zomato app or from Swiggy app. Okay. So what Zomato or Swiggy had done, they have disrupted, they have changed the behavior of consumer. Okay. So again, if we have to take the example of might be any e-commerce platform, let's say Amazon is there. So Amazon has also disrupted the industry. Like if you had to order any item, any product from any shop, you had two options now. Either you can order it online or you can order it offline. But if we talk about pre-Amazon era or pre-e-commerce era, the only option that we had was to go to a nearby store and buy it. So a startup ideally is any kind of business which has changed the consumer behavior, which has changed how the industry used to function. And this kind of change actually is very much important for the economy as well. Okay, so if you are bringing up something new, the whole industry is to be affected by it. It is a very big step. So you need to analyze a lot of things before forming a startup. Like the business plan needs to be there and all of those things. So that is what is actually known as a startup. I hope everybody is clear up till now. Now that we have understood the overview of startup ecosystem, what is a startup, let us move forward with the registration process. So if I am to talk about the registration process for a startup, it is categorized into 3 parts. Okay. So startup registration does not mean that you can just take it in one go. There are 3 steps or 3 parts for a startup registration, which has been categorized here as pillar 1, pillar 2, and pillar 3. Okay. So the first step, which is known as the pillar 1, is the DPIIT recognition. So this is the very first step in any startup journey. When you want to register a startup, the first thing that you need to get is the Standup India certification. Okay, which is also known as the DPIIT recognized certification. So once you have that certification, you can finally be called as a startup in India, and you can take the benefits that come along with it. So this is pillar 1. Next is your pillar 2, which is known as angel tax exemption. Now, angel tax exemption, we will be covering this in detail in the later slides. But to give you an overview, this is again one of the benefits or one of the registration process for a startup. If you want to take the angel tax benefit, you need to file a form 2, and then only you can take this angel tax exemption benefit for a startup. So this is again pillar 2. Pillar 3 is 80 IAC registration or exemption benefit. Now this is again 100% tax holiday that any startup gets in any 3 years out of a total period of 10 years. There are certain conditions which you need to satisfy for getting the 80 IAC registration benefits, and that you can obviously learn it in your income tax books, which are there for your final examinations. So 80 IAC benefit is again known as the third pillar for startup registration. Now, one most important thing to understand here is that when you take the benefit or when you take the registration under any of the pillar, the benefits that you get is only that is available with that pillar. So if I am to say that, let's say you take the registration as DPIIT recognition, you are now a Startup India. It does not mean that you can take the benefit of pillar 3. Okay. So only if you take the pillar 3 registration, then only you can take the benefit of pillar 3. So this is very much needs to be clear. Startup registration does not mean that you can get the benefits that come with pillar 2 and pillar 3. Only when you take the registration under any pillar, those benefits only you will be getting. So this is very much important thing that you need to understand. Okay. Let us move forward and understand first pillar 1 and pillar 2. Pillar 3 is very much prominent, which I've already discussed. So pillar 1 is the DPIIT Startup India recognition, which is the very first step in the startup journey. So it is a flagship program of the government, which has been started in 2016. Okay. So under this, if you want to take the startup registration, there are certain criteria that you need to fulfill, right? So the first criteria is the type of entity. There are 4 types of entity that your startup can be. We have already discussed. The first is private limited company. The second is LLP. The third is partnership firm. And the fourth is a one-person company. Now, one-person company is not there in the definition for eligible startup, but it has been clarified or cleared by way of a FAQ by Startup India Ministry. All right. So there are 4 types of entities that your startup can be when you want to take the Startup India registration. Next criteria is your incorporation criteria, which says that your startup should not be more than 10 years old. Okay. If you fulfill this criteria, you can move ahead and check your turnover criteria. Okay. Now, what does turnover criteria means? Turnover means that turnover obviously has the same meaning which is there in the Companies Act. So if your turnover has not crossed more than 100 CR in any of the financial year, okay, you can again go forward and fulfill this condition as well. So the third criteria would be the turnover criteria of 100 CR. And the last criteria is your innovation criteria. So under innovation criteria, it is very much important that a startup should be working towards any innovation, employment, wealth generation. It should be a scalable business model where you're generating n number of employment opportunities for the people. Okay. Now this criteria is a very subjective criteria. It cannot be proved, but it can be justified, right? So this is again a subjective criteria, and you need to analyze it in very much detail to move forward with it. So one again more important point to note over here is a startup cannot be a business which was already in existence. It cannot be a reconstruction of a business which was already in existence. So what does it mean? That let's say you have a company which might be 5 years old. Okay, the company might be in the area of, let's say, garment manufacturing. So because the business is not doing so well, and you have a new idea, it might be tech sector. So what you have done, you have changed that business into a business which is there for tech building. So will it be valid? Can you register that company as a startup? No, because it specifically says that a startup cannot be formed by reconstruction of a business which was already in existence. So it simply means it has to be a new company. It cannot be an old business for which you have changed your business objective, changed this kind of basic things, reconstructed the business, and then you're applying for DPIIT recognition. So this is one of the most important factor that you need to remember. Okay. Talking about pillar 2, which is angel tax exemption. So first, let us understand what is angel tax, what kind of benefits that we get, and how much benefits do we get under this thing. So what is angel tax? Okay, first let us understand that. So we know that there is a section in Income Tax Act which is known as 5627B. Okay, what does it speak? It says that if you are a company and you are issuing shares at a premium which is unjustifiable, then you have to pay on the difference amount. The difference amount which is FMV minus book value. On that amount, you need to pay a tax of 30%, which is known as the angel tax. Okay. Now, why this is important for a startup? Let us understand that. We know that a startup have a very high valuation normally. Okay. So let's say a new company is there which has just been formed. So in the company, in the books, there is nothing but just the share capital of, let's say, 1 lakh rupees. So what is the book value or book price of the share? Might be 10 is the book price of the share and the book value is 1 lakh. Okay, the 1 lakh is the book value of the company. Now, if we talk about the fair market value or the valuation for the startup, it might be possible that a startup usually gets valued on the future prospects, on the idea's future prospects. So it might be possible that because the idea is so much great, or based on the numbers, based on the business valuation and business modeling, the startup valuation comes to, let's say, 5 CR. It is possible. Okay. So now you have raised 10% shares for a company. So 10% shares means 1 lakh is your total book value, 10% of which comes to 10,000 rupees. So for 10,000 book value of shares, you have got how much amount? 10% of 5 CR, which is 50 lakh, right? So for 10,000 shares, 10,000 amount of shares, you are getting might be your funding of 50 lakh. So there is a premium, right? 50 lakh minus 10,000, which comes to 49 lakh 90,000. There is a premium amount. So earlier, it was something like the startup needs to pay 30% on this 49 lakh 90,000. So around 12 lakh something would go into taxes. So it was very cumbersome for the startups because they had to pay this huge amount of taxation, and nothing was actually left for their operations, for their scaling up. So the government, to boost the startup, has bought in the angel tax exemption. So if you are a startup, you don't need to pay any tax on this amount of 49 lakh 90,000. It will be totally exempt for you. Okay, so before 2016, it was the angel tax exemption benefit was not available. So around 18 startups had got income tax notices saying that this much amount you need to pay as income tax act, and any startup would have actually not been able to move forward because it was not possible for them to pay such a huge amount of taxation in the early days. So the government, to boost the startup economy in India, have removed this taxation, and now the startup does not need to pay any tax on the premium amount. Okay, clear up to the now, I hope. Now there are certain investors who are not covered when you talk about angel tax exemption. So which are those investors which are not covered under this? One is investment from non-resident. So if you're taking any investment from non-resident, they will not be categorized into this category. The next is your venture capital, and the third is your specified company. Now, specified company is actually a large company, you can say, whose net worth have exceeded 100 CR or the turnover has exceeded 250 CR. So if you are raising funding from this kind of 3 categories, they won't be categorized as an angel investor. Okay, so so if you are raising fund from any person apart from these 3 categories, it will be categorized as an angel tax or angel investors, and up to 25 CR of investment. Up to 25 CR of investment, you can get this exemption. I hope this is clear. Moving forward to the Startup India registration process. So how do we register for a Startup India, which is the first pillar that we have already understood? So the first and foremost step is to register on Startup India or gov.in. Thereafter, you need to apply as an eligible startup. Okay. Once you apply as an eligible startup, there will be around, let's say 20 to 30 questions around will be there, which you have to answer in certain word limit of 1,000 words or so. And you need to answer it very pinpoint. Okay. You have to make it sure that you answer it very vividly, and it is not exceeding the word limit. Okay. So those kind of questions are something like, what is your idea about? What is your business plan? How are you dealing with the competitors? So those kind of basic things might be there. But it is very much important that you understand that question very well, because your registration depends on 2 things. The first is your questionnaire, and the second is your pitch deck, which we will be discussing it again. So the third step is that you need to answer the questionnaire which are there. Okay. So you need to be very clear about all of these things previously as well. Okay. After you have this questionnaire filled up, you need to submit certain documents. Now, documents depends on the stage of startups. Okay, so let's say we have already spoken about the stage of startup. So if you are talking about any startup which is in the ideation stage, let's say you need to submit the pitch deck. Okay, if a startup is there which is in the scaling stage, you need to submit a video for the startup. So it depends upon stage to stage. So let's say you're registering for a company which is in the ideation stage. Okay, so what are the documents that vividly you need to submit? One is the certificate of incorporation document, and the other is the pitch deck. Now, pitch deck is very important. Okay, pitch deck is something sort of your business identity, where number of questions are covered, like what is your business plan, what are the problem that is existing, what is the solution you're providing, how much huge is your market for the startup, who are your competitors, okay, what is your revenue model, then what are your growth plans, what are the co-founders detail. So all of these things are there, and that needs to be vividly researched, and it needs to be penned down in the pitch deck. So once you have that pitch deck ready, you can get it prepared from a person who is doing it on a regular basis, or you can or the founders can do it themselves as well. But it is very much important to have the pitch deck very properly made, because the Startup India has certain guidelines as well that your pitch deck needs to have these things. And if you do not have, it might be so that they're rejecting your startup registration. So the fourth step will be to submit these two documents. After you have submitted these kind of things, you will be getting the registration certificate within a period of, let's say, 7 working days on your registered mail ID. Also, you can download it from the portal as well. And if the department has certain queries, they will raise the queries which you need to answer. And again, then thereafter, you need to wait for another 7 working days. So this is normally the process for DPIIT registration, which is the Startup India registration. Okay. The next we talk about is the benefits of startup. Now, a startup has n number of benefits. Okay, so what are the benefits for startup? If I have to talk about it one by one, the first is your self-certification. Okay, now what do we mean by self-certification? We know that a company or any business has n number of compliances, right? Might be ESI, EPF, Bonus Act, Gratuity Act, or FSI, and all of those other law licenses, your drugs licenses, your if you're a Section 8 company, then there is another licenses for you that you need to be aware about. So it depends upon your business sector as well. So those kind of compliances can be very much cumbersome for any startup. Why? Because the startup usually are founders who do not have much of the capital, or even if they have, they do not want to spend much on the compliances. So the government has brought ease for them. Okay, there is a self-certification for 9 of the labor laws and environmental laws, which a startup founder can simply self-certify. Like they can say that I want to take the registration under this act, and they don't need to submit any documents. On the basis of just those self-certification, they can get those licenses. So it is very much simpler for a startup. If you take the registration under startup, you can take the registration under those 9 labor and environmental laws just on the basis of your self-certification. Okay. Next is your tax exemption. Now, tax exemption we have already spoken about. Now, there are other tax exemption benefits as well. The first we have spoken about is 80 IAC. Okay. The second is your 5627B. Now, there are other tax benefits as well. What are the other tax benefits? The one of the tax benefits, 80GB. Okay. Now, what does 80GB stands for? Let's say there is a capital gain on sale of residential property, right? So you need to pay the tax, or you can save it by investing it in a startup. Okay. Yes. Yeah. What you can do is, if you have capital gain on sale of any residential property, then you can invest that amount into a startup. Now, there are certain rules and conditions that you need to satisfy, that your holding should not be more than 25%. Holding should be minimum 25%. Then it should be an Indian startup, and all of those things. It should be a new startup. The investment should be there for minimum 5 years. So many conditions are there which you need to satisfy to get the tax exemption under 80GB. Okay. Apart from that, there is also the benefit of Section 79, Section 79 of Income Tax Act. Now, what does it say? It says that we know Section 79 specifically tells about business losses, right? So it says that let's say you have a company in which the shareholding pattern has changed, where more than 51% has been transferred to any other person or the new shareholder, right? So in those kind of scenarios, the past business losses cannot be carried forward for any company or any business. But for startup, it has been exempted. So in case of startup, what is there? Even if the shareholding pattern has changed by more than 51%, you can still carry forward the past losses. So this is one of the benefits that has been given to, again, the startup, the tax benefits. Okay. Then again, there is a tax benefit in terms of your perquisites, ESOP. So that is under Section 17 of Income Tax Act, which says that when you give ESOP to a person, normally it has been charged on the date of sale, on the date of exercise of options. Okay. Now, what may happen that you have issued ESOP to your employees. Okay. You have issued ESOP to your employees, but it might so happen that your employees have not sold that ESOP now. So they might not have the cash or the liquidity to pay the taxes. But as per Income Tax Act, the taxability comes at the time of at the time of sale, when they have when the company has given the ESOP to the employees. But because they do not have the liquidity to pay the tax, it was very much cumbersome for the startup founders as well as for the employees to take the ESOP. So for the startup founders, there is a relaxation which says that ESOP will be taxable for the employees of a startup company only when you have sold your ESOPs or you have exercised your option of converting that ESOP into shares. Only when you have done that, then only you have to pay the tax. So that is how tax exemption benefits are also available in terms of ESOP for a startup. Okay. Moving forward to the next benefit, which is easy winding up. So we know that running a business is easy, but it might so happen that you might face certain problems or certain scenarios where it is not possible to continue the company. And we know that winding up process is also difficult, or it includes a lot of compliance. And if you don't close a company, then you have to do the compliances or annual form filing every yearly. You have to do the audit. You have to file MGT 7A or EOC 4 as the case may be every year, even if you're not doing any kind of business in that company, or even if you're running losses, right? So it is very much difficult for a startup founder who might be having cash crunch to do this kind of compliance. So they want to go for winding up. But again, that is very difficult because winding up also involves cost and it takes a lot amount of time as well. But for startup, it has been again relaxed. So a startup can easily wind up a company within 90 days. So just within 90 days, a company can be wound up for a startup. So this is also one of the benefits that has been given to a Standup India registered startup. All right. The next benefit is patent and IPR. Now, why patent and IPR first is important in case of startup? Let us first understand that. How many normal business are actually filing for patent? Not much. Until and unless they have something very much new, innovative or something like that. But very few rare businesses are going for patent. But what happens in case of startup? Mostly the startups come up with new idea. And because everything depends on that idea, it might so happen that you have the idea now, but you don't have the resources to start that idea or to execute that idea, right? It might be possible. So let's say you have a great idea to build an app to might be monitor the soil fertility for the agriculture production. You might have the idea, you might have all the things in place, but you do not have the funding to build that idea or to convert that idea into a software. Okay. Now you cannot just discuss that idea with everyone, but to get the funding, obviously you need to discuss the idea with your investors. So you will always have the risk factor that how will I save my idea or how will I secure my idea? So what you can do, you can apply for patent. Okay. You can apply for trademark or logo registration as well. Now, these kind of terms might seem very gishy and everything, But it may so happen, and it is very much prominent, that patent filing involves huge cost, and a startup founder might not have that much cost with them, right? That much funding with them. So again, in this area as well, a startup registered startup gets the benefit, which is 80% compliance fee have been reduced for them. So if the whatever government fees is there, they need to pay just the 20% of that. 80% will be waived for a startup. So this is again one of the benefit that is given to a startup in India. All right. The next benefit is easy tendering. Now, what is easy tendering? Easy tendering means, let's say you have a great startup, everything is good, and you have found out that there is a tender which is available in the government portal or in the GEM portal. Okay. And you find that you are valid or you are qualified for all the criteria except for one of the criteria, okay, which says that you need to have a pre-experience of, let's say, 3 years or 2 years or 4 years, something like that, right? But what happens in case of startup, because startups are usually coming up with a new idea, they might not have past experiences, okay? So it might not be possible for them to apply for tenders. So this is again relaxed in case of startup. A startup can apply for tenders even if they do not have the past experience. So let's say if your client is there, or if you as a founder wants to apply for a startup, and you see that the first point is written that you need to have a pre-experience of 3 years. What you can do is, if you have the startup registration, you can simply go forward and skip that criteria because it is not needed for a startup. So this is again one of the benefit which is given to a startup in India. The next benefit we can see is tax saving for investor. We have already discussed this in detail, that an investor also gets tax benefits that we have already discussed in the previous slides. The next benefit is networking. Now, what is networking and why is it networking important for a startup? So let's say you are a startup in the field of, might be agriculture, okay, agri-tech startup you're having. So you need co-founders. You are just a sole person who is starting this kind of business, but you need a co-founder. So where do you get it from? You can go to some of the networking events which are held every now and then. Okay, just visit the Startup India portal website, where you will see that this kind of event is being held in so and so state. This kind of event is being held in Delhi or Mumbai or so and so place. So start visiting this kind of networking events, where might be possible that you might get your co-founder, you might get your tech advisor, you might get your finance advisor. So networking helps you a lot if you are a startup. And it is not just the physical networking. For a startup in India, there are virtual networking options also available. So a startup actually needs to explore the vivid options, and then only they can take the full advantage of it. Okay. Now, with respect to networking, it is very much important that you are active on the Startup India portal. It will not be happening that you're just a startup and you sit at your office and you expect that you will be getting all the networking notifications. No, you have to go and check the Startup India website, where you can see, okay, this is the event that is being held in 5 days or 10 days, and then you need to analyze which event will be useful to you. Start registering for that, start networking, and then only you will be able to take the full advantage for a startup. The next benefit a startup gets in Startup India is cloud accounting. Now, we all know about audit trail, right? Audit trail, which will be applicable from 1st April 2023. So every company needs to maintain their data or accounting in a software which has the option or which has the facility for audit trail. Now, Tally is obviously one of those softwares, and this accounting software comes with a cost. Nothing comes for free, right? But a startup in the early phases want to save on costs, want to save on expenses. But being a company, they have to take the help of a accounting software to maintain the audit trail, right? So what is the option that is available to them? Startup India website also gives you this benefit of multiple accounting softwares. So one of them is Zoho, which is again tied up with Startup India. You can get that software for free if you're a startup. Okay, so again, see how much ease the government is doing for a startup. There are ample number of benefits that a startup founder gets. This is just one part. Apart from cloud accounting, you get the billing software also. You get the payroll software. You get the business expenses analysis software. Many softwares are there which you get as a startup. You just need to analyze it, know it, and then only you can take the full advantage. Okay. The next is legal support. Now, legal support, again, if you are there in Startup India registration and you want to take certain legal advices, Startup India portal has their own legal team, which will give you certain second opinion as well. And it is available to any startup which is registered on the Startup India portal. So again, this will help a startup in saving costs, right? The next is funding corpus. Now, what is funding corpus? We know that government has put aside crores of rupees as fund in SIDBI for specifically for startups, right? Every now and then you will be seeing that so and so incubation center has been granting this much amount of funds from the Startup India seed scheme as a grant or as a convertible debentures, right? Now, where does that fund come from? That fund comes from the SIDBI fund, which has been set aside by the government for startups. Okay. Now, when you are a startup, you can take this kind of funding opportunities. So few of my clients are there who myself, I have helped them in getting this kind of grants. Now, this kind of grants are very useful to a startup who is in the early stage and who do not have the costing or who do not have the revenue to cover up their daily expenses. So they can apply for this kind of schemes, this kind of funding schemes from the government, and they can get their basic grants, which can help them in their day-to-day running costs. All right. Now, let us understand what is the future for CA in this. Because you all are CA students, it is very much important that you correlate everything with your startup journey. Okay, so there is an ample scope for you as a CA in the startup journey. I have just penned down few of the points. Let us understand a few of the areas, what role you can play in the startup journey as a CA or as a CA student. All right. So first is become a founder. You might be knowing about the Boat music headphones which are available. The founder is none other than CA Aman Gupta, right? You might have heard about him. So he is a CA and he has not gone into the traditional practice area or traditional job area. He has used all his skills, all his knowledge, and he has made a successful startup. Like Dheeraj sir has also said that he has not seen much of the startups who are actually which founded by CA and are not successful. So a CA which actually founds a startup has more chances of getting success because they know about the economics, they know about finances, taxes, business plans, financial modeling, all of these things they don't know by themselves, right? And you as a CA can definitely go and become a founder. This is very big opportunity for you. Just you have to think out of the box. So all of the pointers that I've discussed previously, like how you can get the idea, what are the steps in the startup journey, all of these things will help you in becoming a founder, getting the idea, getting the steps right, and finally forming a startup. Okay. So first opportunity that you have is become a founder. The next point is joining the finance team. Now, what do we mean by this, joining the finance team? Like, let's say there is a startup which is there, a new startup, might be 1 year old. And you might have been very much keen to know what does the startup journey look like, right? So what you can do, you can be their CFO, because normally a small startup or a new company, they cannot afford a full-time CFO, and they want a senior person or a well-qualified person for that role, and who can be more qualified for as a chartered accountant, right? So you can apply for that kind of finance role in any of the startups. You can gain experience, and believe me, students, there are numerous things that you can learn and understand when you are there with a startup. as their own finance team, right? You will be getting to know about their per cost revenue, their per unit revenue, their CAC, their LTV. So all of these things you will be able to understand. Also various agreements, how the funding takes place, the debt model, there's preferential models, all of these things, these terms which might be crux to you at that point of time. At this point of time, you can understand it very well if you work with a startup in the finance team. So just broaden your perspective. So now, if you want to go in the traditional area after becoming CA, just job and practice is not an option for you. Under job, one of the field that is open for you is also the startups. So you can definitely go into a startup and join in the finance team and be the finance head. And when you have that kind of managerial position, you will be learning as well as earning. Okay. Next opportunity for you as a CA is financial modeling. Now, what is financial modeling? Financial modeling is again very important because if a company is there which is in the early phases and they want to know that down 5 years down the line, how is their product going to be? How is their service going to be? How is the revenue going to be? But it cannot be just known by any normal person. There has to be numbers, there has to be assumptions, and lot many numbers and figures will be there which will help a co-founder in analyzing what is the business model for them. So recently I have been in touch with, let's say, a person who has a startup in the area of sports. So the idea is great, but they have not started generating revenue. Okay, but they also want to know how will they be generating revenue in 5 years. So we have made a financial model for them in which it is something like in the first year this much revenue they will be generating. In the second year this will be the expenses, this is the revenue, this is how they will be growing, this will be their expenses, and this is what makes them understand that okay, based on this financial modeling or based on these numbers, if we go through, we can definitely achieve some sort of success down the 5-year line. Similarly, like if you're a CA student, if you do not have any plan, you cannot succeed, right? Similarly, in case of business also, you need to have a financial model in place. And who better can do it other than a CA? So you can prepare a financial model for a startup as well. The next opportunity that is available for you as a CA is doing valuation. Okay, so as we have already spoken previously, or we have already discussed previously, that a startup has high valuation, right? Or a startup has a valuation that might not be feasible for a normal layman. So who determines this kind of valuation? A valuation is determined by a chartered accountant. You can take the valuer certification. You can become a registered valuer. After you have that, you can start doing valuations for startups, right? So how a 1 lakh book value startup has a fair market valuation of might be 5 CR. You need to determine that. You need to determine that how much is their valuation if they have to issue shares at this point of time. Okay, so that is again one of the area that you as a CA can look into. The next pointer is data analysis. Now, what is data analysis? Let's say a startup is there, they are doing good, but they do not know how much they are doing good, right? So what is important is they need to have their data analyzed, done, right? So let's say a startup is there who is generating revenue and they have expanded their business in, let's say, 5 states. Might be Mumbai, they have their operations in Mumbai, Kolkata, and few other 3 areas, let's say. Okay. Now, what may happen that they are generating revenue from each of the different 5 places, but because they do not have the analysis in mind, they cannot understand that how much they will be successful or which area they need to expand more into, right? So data is important, but data analysis is more important than that. And a CA can very much analyze or very well analyze the data for a startup. You can prepare flowchart, you can use BI, business intelligence softwares, you can use pivot tables and give a very vivid report for a startup, and which will be in the form of MIS reports. They can go through and they can understand, okay, this is the area that a startup founder needs to work more. This is the area or this is the sector that a startup founder needs to remove from their startup to be more profitable. So data analysis is also something that a CA can do for a startup. The next place is your tax head. Now, tax head is something which we already know. Every CA knows about direct and indirect taxes. So you can again join in the startup as a tax head. You can be a virtual tax head for them, and you can help them in analyzing all their tax compliances, doing all of those things at might be a cost which will be very much user friendly or pocket friendly for a startup, because they cannot afford a full-time tax head in the early days. So this is also what you can do. And in this journey, believe me students, you will be able to learn a lot, because tax when you're joining in as a team member with any startup, when you're being them as a team member, you can learn a lot. Okay, so just start analyzing, start researching more about startups, and after becoming CA, you can definitely join in as a job. You can do it in any startup. There are ample opportunities available there. The next and the final opportunity is in the field of fundraising. So fundraising is something we know that the startup has ample number of fund options available. The Startup India seed scheme, the debt option, the equity options. Under the equity, again, there is a preferential option. There are convertible debentures option. All of those options are there. Okay, and startup founder does not know which option should that company or that startup founder needs to take. So let's talk about just the Startup India seed scheme. So Startup India seed scheme gives you fund under two options. One is the grant, one is the convertible debentures. So a founder might not be aware that which options to choose, and there you can come in as a CA and you can advise which option is more beneficial to them. This is the option that they need to be going to. Also, if they are going in for equity, you need to make them understand how much equity they can dilute in what stage. Okay, so these kind of areas you can study. You can work with your founders, and you can analyze it more and more well when you start researching. So this brings me to the end of my presentation, and I hope that you have got the information, basic information about startups. What is a startup? Again, how to start it, and start analyzing it and start implementing it as well. Thank you so much.
It was a wonderful presentation, Raksha.
Thank you.
And then we can take some questions if they are from the student first. No?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Are there the questions? Will I able to view from, or you read out the questions if there me? Are there questions from the student side?
I can find some questions for the MSME. So I can post it for Anil sir if you want to take it up.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. So the first question, which is there that I can see for MSME is GST mandatory for MSME?
See, you need a new unit which is just about to start. May not have the GST registration, but for the MSME registration, they're asking for the GST and the PAN. PAN is mandatory, but for the GST, it is not mandatory till your threshold limit is crossed. So, on the basis of your self-certification basis, you can apply for the MSME registration. But post 1 April 2021, you have to take a GST registration mandatory. Date to that, it was only on the self-declaration basis only.
Okay. The next question that I can find is what kind of business comes under MSME? Is there any specific category?
Every type of business, whether it's a manufacturing enterprises, service enterprises, or even the now trading units as well, also can be categorized in the MSME classification. There are certain industries which may be barred by the local authority, which do require certain licenses. First, those licenses have to be procured, then only we can start those industries. Only those industries will be barred until they get a specific certification or specific license from the respective authority. Otherwise, every industry or services are covered. Only specifically as prohibited under MSMEs, gambling and lottery business, gambling and betting business type of services, or the business, those sort of business are not considered as per the MSME certification. or Udyam registration. Otherwise, every kind of business are considered. Now, if you want to set up a gun factory, but setting up that factory, you need specific licenses from the central or the state. Once you get that license, you may register yourself as under MSME.
The next question which is there is how many days it will take to get the MSME certificate?
See, once you apply, Aadhaar card is mandatory. I said. When you fill up the form, you can fill up the form within 15 to 20 minutes. When you finish up the form, registration number, you get the registration number immediately. And within 24 hours, you get a certificate.
Okay. The next question which is there is, what is the difference between MSME, MSE and SME?
They almost mean the same. Earlier, we used to use the word SSI, small scale industries. MSM means the same. Either it's micro, small, or medium, maybe used interchangeably. But now the common term which is used is MSME. Those words were not relevant these days, basically. Otherwise, they mean the same thing only. Whether it is MSME, SME, or SSI, or MSME, almost mean the same thing.
The next question which is there is, does travel agency also come under MSME?
Yes, they are covered under the service enterprises, and they can also take the MSME registration. Even we chartered accountant can take the registration under the MSME. Travel agency are also covered, and they can also take the registration. Only the real estate business are not yet covered under the MSME registration. Even the real estate business are not yet covered.
Okay. The next question is, since the registration is Aadhaar based, so if a company has 2 directors, and one director also has a business for a partnership firm, can that director take registration for both company and partnership firm?
Yeah. One other you can take the 2 registration also. Once you have taken already 1 registration, for the other registration, you need to go to the registration which you have already taken, and there you have to add on the details of the other business. There's an option to add units or add business also. You can update your already Aadhaar registration.
Okay. One of the question by the student is, I intend to work on franchisee model and open an ice cream parlor. Can Mudra loan help me?
Yeah, why not? Mudra loan is specifically meant for this type of business only, small businesses. You can always approach your bank, or you may apply to online portal, and you can avail those benefits.
Okay. The next question is, again, I think it's the same. It is written, is it mandatory for every entity to have PAN and GST?
Yeah, PAN is mandatory.
Okay.
Without PAN, you cannot register.
So these are some of the questions for the MSME.
Gandhi, are there any questions from the? You don't see in the chat box, no?
Now I think it's a time for vote of thanks. Right.
I have some questions for Raksha. Can I take up if we have certain time?
Okay, you can take 1 or 2 questions.
Raksha has so wonderfully explained everything. I'm sure that there may be no questions from the student side. See, Raksha, I started my startup business. I do not know about the certification things and all. I do not have idea also what startup means. But during the course of the time, it seems your idea has done a good job. It's working very fine. But I haven't taken any registration. Once I come to know that certain registration also exists. Can I apply those registration after I have started my business? Or it might be I have already crossed 1 or 2 years of doing that business.
Okay.
Can the registration be allowed to me?
Okay. So yes, it can definitely be allowed. Two most important things that we need to see over here is, the first is you should be either a private limited company, LLP partnership firm, or a 1-person company. So if you have started it as a sole proprietorship, you cannot be eligible. But if you are either in 4 forms, you are eligible. The second is, since you have said 1 or 2 years have been crossed, it is allowed. 10 years should not have been crossed. Also, the revenue should not be more than 100 CR. So if you fulfill these 3 criteria, you can register it now and you can get the Startup India registration benefits.
Thank you, Raksha. That's all what the question is you had. Gaganti, we can take up now.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, everyone, to the one and all present online. Honorable Chairman, Students Enrichment Board, Board of Studies Operation, CA Sushil Kumar Goyal ji, respected Vice Chairman, SSCB, Shri Shridhar Mopala ji, today's session keynote speaker, CA Dheeraj Kumar Khandelwal ji, Chairman of the Committee on MSME and Startup, and all the participants. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all dignitaries. On behalf of SSCB BUS Corporation, I extend a warm welcome to the students present online in webinar. I would like to express my gratitude to our today's session eminent speaker, CA Anil Kumar Mittal ji, for their presence, contribution, and giving and commendable coverage on the topic MSME and startup, and encouraging us with his words and enhancing the knowledge in clear-cut way presented to the students. The way you shared the various government schemes are really praiseworthy. I would also like to express my gratitude to our today's session eminent speaker, CA Raksha Agarwal ji, for her presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success, and for giving an excellent coverage to the topic MSME and startup, and encouraging us with her words and enhancing the knowledge in lucid way presented to the students, and also presenting question in a very interesting and knowledgeable way. I must thank the organizing team, Shri Alok Jaji, volunteers, for working hard for every weekend to make this series of webinars successful day by day. I congratulate all the participants for their active participation. Thank you everyone once again for making it a great success. Thank you.